Oh, that'll have to do. My other half was you. I hope these pains just passing through, but I doubt it.
Hey everybody, welcome to American Idol Unaired. I'm your host Bennett Shear, and today we're back with another unaired contestant from season 21, Peyton Kyle.
What's up, y'all? What's up, Bennett? Thanks for having me on, man. I'm excited. We were just talking before this about how much I like the concept of what you got going on. So it's really cool that I'm on here right now. This is cool, man.
Appreciate it, dude. I'm so pumped. Well, tell me a little about you for the folks who didn't get to see you on the show. PK, as your friends called you.
Yeah.
Let's get to know you a little bit more.
Yeah, PK is the nickname. That's what stuck. Everybody, my friends, family. If you get to know me, then you know me as PK. But Peyton Kyle Lane is my full name. I'm originally from Tampa, Florida. I lived here for 22 years of my life, and then right before the show, which was around, I guess it would have been in Nashville around November. So around late August, September of last year, I moved to North Georgia. And I had a pretty good job here in Florida. I was selling windows and doors door to door, which doesn't sound glamorous, but the pay was nice. I had benefits. I was doing pretty good. And then music was always, kind of in the background around that time frame because I had a good job. I wasn't as diligent in the music scene. But then a bunch of my friends were encouraging it. And my family was like, man, you're a young kid, young 20s, you gotta go after it at some point. So literally right before the show, I moved to Georgia to do music full time. I don't know why I picked North Georgia to do that in. My dad lives there, which is a benefit, getting to spend time with him and live with him right now. But I think it was more of I just needed a change of scenery and, to tackle the music thing full on, without having that experience yet in my life was scary. But the city kind of welcomed me with open arms. And, yeah, just to catch you up to speed, just had a working life as a kid and figured I was just going to have the blue-collar jobs or white-collar jobs. And then music kind of just made its way into my life very recently. And then the show happened, and now I'm on a podcast called Idol Unaired. So,
Yeah, well, honored to have you. And I think that's really important and cool that you just had that support and those people pushing you to do the thing, because it's a blessing when you have that.
For sure, absolutely. Yeah, my friends have always, when your family, they've never been biased. They've never been the family that's just oh, he's the greatest singer ever. How your family can get with your talents and your gifts and whatnot. But they always encouraged me realistically, which I feel was super needed. My mom's always been a realist with me. So is my dad and my brother, which is why I took it to heart when they said that, maybe you should consider really trying this thing out full time. And then I think the coolest thing was that even the company I was working for, I had worked there for 2 years. And I had worked with the same crew for that amount of time, and I had a lot of friends there, but even they encouraged it when it came down to it. And I was telling my boss, I was like, something's calling me right now with music and stuff. She was like, no, you got to go do it. This job will be here. So I think that was what made it easiest to just up and decide to go do that. Just cause when you have your family, your friends, and then people who may not know you as well, still encouraging that same thing, it definitely pushed me to going up there and doing it.
I'm curious about that scenery change and just being somewhere else, if that inspired you at all, and if you really did feel that impact of being in a different location, maybe if it inspired any of your music or if it just changed your mood at all.
Yeah, definitely. When I had left, I came up on, I think all I had was my last paycheck that I had made. So as soon as I got there, I didn't know I didn't have any gigs. I really looking back, how I planned it out was terrible. The idea was there. The idea was great. Oh yeah, I'm going to go do what I love for a living. But, without setting that up, there was no immediate sign that I had made the right decision. So I was doing Uber Eats and stuff. And, I had, to catch everybody up on how the show happened. I had actually tried out for Idol the last 3 years, the last 3 seasons. And I think the first year I tell everybody I had no idea who I was as an artist. I auditioned horribly on the Zoom auditions, and rightfully so. They did not send me to go audition in front of the judges. And then the year after that was like the big COVID year. So I had gotten past the Zoom audition, but I then had a positive COVID test, which ended up, I think a week later, got shown as a negative test, but by then it was too late and I couldn't go. And then the same thing happened last year. So because of moving to Georgia and doing the Uber Eats, and like the only thing I knew how to do music wise to kind of get my name out there was post a bunch of covers. So I started doing that, and I met a couple of buddies up there. Maverick specifically is one that I wanted to mention because he runs a bunch of karaoke up there. He had little places that he could introduce me to as an artist and be like, hey, like this kid does live music if you ever want to have him out. So he's a big help with that. So he was kind of the first person that took me in and was like, you know, we can make this happen, but you're really going to have to work at it. And I was at this crossroads of like, I have no money. I just made this decision to come up here and do this, and nobody knows who I am. And, you know, outside of a couple covers, like a lot of businesses, they want to see you perform. So they're not going to give you gigs just based off of like a 30-second video on Instagram. So it was really cool. My buddy Maverick actually introduced me to a bunch of places up there, and I'll never forget. I was at a club called Blue Door, which is like now like all of my friends. I have a very tight circle up in Georgia. I like to keep it that way because that support system is very important for me. So I just hang out with the same people, but that's like our spot. And it was like midnight, and I get a call from California, and I'm like, there's no way this is it. All of like the fourth time, you know, 4 years in a row. Like, I can't believe I'm getting this call. So I run outside, I answer it. Sure enough, it was the same casting agent from the year prior. And she's like, it's that time of year. Like, what are you doing? And I'm sitting there thinking like, wow, like this couldn't have come at a better time. Cause I had, you know, my whole goal is to just do this one thing. And I had nothing. So, of course I was like, yeah, like, let's do it. Like, I'm ready. You know, I had told her, I was like, I just moved. Like, I don't have a job anymore. You know, I'm trying to make this music thing work, but, you know, I'm just doing Uber Eats. And Idol was like the thing that got me like my foot in the door, really. Cause then I could start telling places like, oh yeah, well, you know, potentially I'm going to be on season 21 of Idol. And so that kind of opened the door like immediately. Like as soon as I could announce that I was going to audition for the judges in November, I got a handful of the places that I'd been calling, called me back, and, you know, started to kind of help me get traction. But essentially to catch you up to speed, like when I first got there, nothing was happening. And then I got that call for Idol. And that was like the thing that changed everything, honestly.
It's always fascinating when you try multiple times, and especially when you weren't expecting the call, because it's kind of like a movie when you're, you know, you've got all the conflict and you're just waiting for some sort of resolution, or, you know, you came at the perfect time. And also the power of the brand, just like, you know, not even getting aired, but all of a sudden it can make an impact on your career.
Yeah. That was the thing that shocked me the most. Is I kept thinking, I'm like, you know, what if I don't get aired? And because all I had done was those Zoom auditions before that. And, you know, to anybody who doesn't know, like those auditions are tough. Like, it's not easy to get past those Zoom auditions because you're sitting in front of the producers of the show and some of the directors. So they're actually, compared to like your audition in front of the judges, depending on how you do, they can be more brutal, in my opinion. You're almost guaranteed to sing 3 songs every time. They want to hear multiple things that you have. They're obviously trying to give you the best constructive criticism because, you know, they're about to push you in front of the cameras and everything. They want to see how you can handle the pressure. But that was one of the things, is I was like, you know, if this doesn't air, like, how is it really going to help me? You know, a couple of places heard about it and I'd gotten some shows, but outside of that, like, there's always that fear that, you know, this may not actually amount to anything, or that you'll get there and not get your ticket. But as soon as I got to Nashville, and, you know, they're encouraging you to take videos and post your experience, and you walking around, you can't really say much, but you can kind of tease that, you know, something big is coming and it involves American Idol. But as like I got further on in the process and I was there for the auditions and everything, like more and more people started to reach out. obviously I could market myself a little bit to some of the other contestants. So like I was getting more followers on social media. And just like being surrounded by that many people who are hungry for the same thing. And when you're in the beginning process and the beginning stages of getting on the show, like it almost, both social media wise and like platform wise, it definitely boosts you forward. It also gives you a huge self-confidence boost because now you're working with all these other people you weren't working with before. And yeah.
I want to hear about your audition and seeing the judges, how you're feeling, what you're saying. Where do we start?
So to start all that, I was supposed to be what they call, they go like when you get there, anybody who's been on the show knows they have like day 0, which is like your learning process day. You get to the hotel, you get all your stuff done. You might do some, although I don't think day 0, you go to like see like where you'd be filmed at. They just go over some of the basics with you. Right now they got to do all the, COVID precaution stuff. So they're just going over information with you on day 0. And then they have like day 1 through 4 for auditions. And I was supposed to be day 1. So right off the bat, I was kind of happy. I'm like, okay, like I'm, in my head, as long as they don't go through too much of the talent before they see me, I know they have a certain amount they probably got to get through and everything. It may not matter, but to me, like being one of the first people mattered because I was like, okay, like maybe I have a better chance because they haven't seen too many people yet. But as plenty of people have mentioned on your podcast and all the people on the show know very well, like those days you'll be in that room for 15 to 18 hours. Like it's more than a day. And I'll be the first to tell you, I am not a morning person at all. Like because of what I do for a living now, and most of my shows are in the evening times, like I'm not at home till midnight, 1 a.m. sometimes. I'm not getting into bed till 2, and I'm sleeping till noon. And that's my habit. So for us to get up at 5:30 to be in the lobby by 6 to in my head, when I first get there, I think like 6 is like, okay, we may start filming. So I think one of the biggest things that I was both doing that I thought was good preparation and was not, and I was probably like doing a disservice to myself, is I would wake up and immediately do my vocal warm-ups, and I would immediately try to sing. And I'm not used to getting up in the mornings. My voice is groggy anyways. And you just have no idea if you're going to be in that judging room at like 8 a.m. Like they don't tell you anything. So they're going to give you certain information about where to be and what time. And they're not going to tell you what it's for. They're not going to tell you when certain things are happening. So you're on your toes the whole time. They may do that to test you or just because they have, 100 people to get through that day. But I felt comfortable on day 1 when I woke up, audition day, because when I was going downstairs to eat breakfast, like I was looking around and no one was eating. And some of the kids with like their parents or whoever's with them, they're just like sitting there, like they look nervous. And I think the one thing for me, like I've never been too nervous of a person with bigger things like that. I just don't like performing, singing wise. Like that's what I love doing. That's what I do for a living. So some of that nerve factor wasn't there, but I was confident because I had a plate full of food. I'm listening to my music, had my headphones in, and I was just like looking around. I'm like, man, like everybody seems like not prepared, and like at least I can get my food down and I'm chilling. And 4 hours down the line, when you're in that one room and nothing's happened yet, and you're exhausted because at least for me, I don't get up at 6, so now it's 10 o'clock. I'm hungry again. There's nothing but like little, chip bags and apples and stuff. Like they do their best to take care of you, but to feed 100 people throughout the day, like it's not going to happen in the way that favors you. I've already had like 3 hot teas because in my head, like they could come pull you to go audition at any point. So I'm still at that point. That's when I start to get a little nervous. And I'm like, okay, like how long am I really going to be here? Are they going to pull me in 2 seconds to either do like B-roll or start filming, or are they just going to say, okay, like you're next, go into the audition room? You just have no idea. That whole day rolls by. I am the last person to do B-roll. I've watched countless people go and film like their little moments, like looking off in the distance and all the stuff you see on the show, their outside interviews. And, eventually like you've sat there long enough, you're having a good day. I'll never forget, I was sitting with Nate Peck, McKinley Brown, which I'm extremely close to McKinley and her family. Like her parents kind of took me in during those days, and I didn't have any guests on the show. My parents are divorced, so I just didn't know who to bring. I didn't want to, hurt anyone's feelings in that matter. So they took me in with open arms, and so I was hanging out with them, and Caroline Smallwood was there on my audition day. Trip Taylor's one of my really good friends, but man, the hours just drug on, and eventually you can only have so much fun sitting in the room. Like eventually, like we're all gonna realize, like, okay, the time's gonna come up eventually. Evening time rolls around. I'm the last person to do B-roll because the sun's going down. I think I'd been in there it had to have been 12 hours at that point, 13 hours, because now it's like 7 p.m. And I heard to start our day, I don't know who auditioned first. I don't know. All I know is like the first 5 to 6 people all got like yeses. They were giving out the ticket like candy is what we were hearing in that one room, which we didn't know was true or not. But they did have some of those people coming in, running in like, oh my God, like I got my ticket. Like they like to fill those moments. So we got to see a few of them. I think one of the first people that day was Caroline Cole, which they obviously aired her, and she had a fantastic audition. And so then it's like 8 p.m., 9 p.m. We're all still in the room. It's been 15 hours, 16 hours now, and I still haven't gone. And I'm like, I don't know. Like now I just have no idea how it's going to go, if I'm going to do well. My voice is already tired because it's been a long day, period. It's not because I've been singing or over practicing or any of that stuff. Forget what his job is. His name's Justin. If anybody on the show knows, he's the nicest guy in the world. He was always like checking on us and making sure we had snacks and different things. He comes up to me. He's like, hey, PK, like I got to talk to you. I'm like, oh God, like what could this be? He pulls me outside and he says, we're running a little bit behind today.
Oh.
And the producers were wondering if you would be okay with going to day 3 auditions.
Oh.
So I'm day 1. So now I'm like, okay, now he's asking me not even to skip day 1, but day 2 as well and come back Saturday. So I'm sitting there and he asked me and one other kid, and I don't want to say the kid's name because he didn't get his ticket. And once you're on the show and you kind of see some of the politics that are in play, everything that the producers see when you're in the waiting rooms, and if you're talking, like everything gets tossed around. Like it's my belief that like some of the people some of the producers and directors of show are in that room to listen in on your attitude and see how you're going to handle things when you're in the audition room, if you got to know. And I think that they kind of relay that as they go along. And so if you're a kid with a bad attitude, like, it may or may not affect your chances. That's how I look at it. You could be wrong.
Of getting aired or just getting through?
I possibly getting through. I think that, if they're going to tell the judges before that some kid is coming into the room, hey, he did not want to wait. He was saying, screw it, which is what this kid next to me said. He was like, no, there's no way. He's like, I have to audition today. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, dude, like maybe you want to like take it easy a little bit. If they're giving you a chance, he's like, I gotta be in New York for something Sunday. I can't stay. Like I have to do it now. And all I know is that kid got 2 no's. And I thought he was a very talented singer. So I don't know if it really affects it, but I think that if you oblige with what the directors want, for me, I looked at Justin, especially because Justin's face when the poor kid was saying that, like he was kind of like, okay. So I looked at Justin and I was like, okay, like, am I going to have to be here tomorrow, like to film anything, or can I have the day? And he was like, no, like you'll have the day off tomorrow. We'll feed you. You can come in for like the group lunch, which was a concern of mine. I'm like, okay, like, am I going to eat? Like, how am I going to go about this? Because we all have to do lunch at some point together. So, I'm wondering if I'm going to miss out on that stuff. And he was like, no, like you'll have the day off tomorrow. You can rest. You can have an extra day to practice, which I thought was a good point. I was like, okay, yeah, I can have an extra day to either rest my voice or really work on my audition song and then go back Saturday. So I told him I'd do it. And I think looking back now, that was the best decision I could have made. Whether I had seen the kids say no or not before, if they had just come to ask me, I think I probably would have taken the opportunity looking back now. The extra day to practice, not to mention I'd been in that room for like 16 hours now. So I didn't know if I was going to go in there tired in general or with a tired voice, or that the judges were going to be tired and cranky. So that was another thing Justin told me. He's like, look, like if the judges have to go late, That's another thing. And that's another reason why I said maybe if that kid had held back, like maybe he wasn't going to get the tired version of the judges or the annoyed version, because they have to be there late. And, because they have careers too, like outside of Idol. Like that's not the only thing they did. Lionel was flying in from Atlanta that whole time, almost every day. He had like a tour he was doing or some sort of marketing thing. In the middle of Hollywood Week and our auditions, Katie was in Tokyo. So like, they're exhausted, and they were late showing up that day for a reason, because they had all done what was that? I think it was the Grammys the day before or something.
Well, there was not country music, because that would
CMT. Oh, it was Country Music Awards. Yeah. That's what it was. So like Luke had just come from that. So, they're all tired. We're all tired. They're tired. So looking back, it was the best decision I could have made, was waiting that extra day. So I just take the day Friday. I had just hung out, relaxed, got plenty of sleep. Saturday rolls around, and now I'm less nervous. I was just like, okay, like I know what today is going to look like. I know I'm going to go there, sit and wait. I'm packing snacks. I'm bringing, like, now I have preparation time. I know not to sing my song 1,000 times over, because I may be late at night. And the one benefit that came from that was, by the time it was my turn to audition, I was one of the first people that day. So I didn't have to wait 13 hours. I think I went at like 2:00. So maybe I had to wait like 6-7 hours, watch other people get filmed. And then by the time the judges were there, I was one of the first people in. I show up to the floor. They take you down to see the judges. And I'll never forget, it was a really cool moment. Because you just had Colton on the show.
Yeah.
And he talks about his faith really diligently, which I applaud very well, because there was, the show doesn't always show too much of like group conversations or anything, but there were multiple times like that day that a lot of us had like little worship sessions in the corner. McKinley's family is a big leader in that, because that's actually what they do. I know her dad was with her on the audition, but they're all a worship team at their church. So they were constantly heading that, and like some of the kids who were believers, and what was cool to me was some of the kids who may not have been believers, but just wanted to feel that sort of connection with the rest of them were also joining in on some of that. And when I went to that room, to that floor, I remember I wasn't listening to my audition song. I was listening to Revelation song. I was listening to worship music, because it kind of just like calms me down and puts me in a good mindset to like, this moment's not for me. It's not for the judges. I have a gift because he gave me a gift, and I'm going to do it to honor him. And that's how I feel. And Nate Peck was in platform. They usually have like 4 or 5 kids that are sitting there waiting to go in to audition, and you'll get to watch them go and come out, which is really cool, because you're supporting your friends, and, they come out with their ticket. Caroline Smallwood was there. Nate Peck was there. Aiden, is it Adair? The one he was.
Yeah, that was McKinley's duet partner, right?
Yes. Aiden Adair was there, and Philip Kane, which is crazy because right before that, myself, Nate, Caroline, and I think Cooper was also down there too at some point. We were all talking about, like, that day we were all talking about, like, oh, like, it better be us. I would love it if we were all in the audition room together, like, down there. And then it ended up happening that way. And I walk up to the little group, and Caroline pulls me aside. She was like, PK, she's like, I don't know if I can do this. She's like, I'm freaking out. I don't know what to do. Like, you got to give me some sort of pep talk. And I was like, listen, this isn't for the judges. This is for, you and the man upstairs. Like this moment is something that he brought you towards, that you've worked hard to get to. I was like, if anything, just like relax and enjoy this moment. Like, you're never going to see this one singular moment again, unless they have you back on the show, whatever happens. Like, this one moment you got to cherish. Like, take a deep breath. And then I asked her, I was like, you're a believer, correct? So I thought I had remembered her talking about her faith before, when we were getting to know each other. And she said yes. And I was like, well, let's just pray. So we're sitting there, they're filming. I forget who it is. Might have been Aiden at that point. I think he was doing like his interview with Ryan Seacrest. And as I'm praying with Caroline, just like to kind of calm her nerves and my own really at that point, because then I'm like realizing, okay, yeah, I'm going to be next at some point too, and I'm going to have some sort of anxiety about this. As we're praying, I feel multiple hands like on my shoulder, and I kind of just peek up, and it was Nate and his mother. It was Cooper and her mother. I think some other contestants, they just run through that room to get to different floors. And a bunch of them, like there was just a group of us in a circle, just like praying on that moment and kind of encouraging each other, which I thought was really cool. And I didn't think I was going to see that sort of thing on Idol. And then, of course, it was really cool to see that, Colton got to talk about that with you, because I remember, I don't know if he got to talk about it too much during his audition, if I can remember correctly. So it's nice that, it's another reason why I like what you do, because you give us a platform to talk about, how we feel. And I think that moment after the prayer, like, that's when I was like, I got this. Like, that was like my one moment. I was like, this is both what we were talking about earlier, the communities behind me now, like this community that we built of musicians and singers that want to care after each other and watch each other succeed. And then, just having that moment with my Savior was awesome. He just put his hand on me, and I was like, I can do this. And then it was my turn to go into the room, and I'm waiting for Ryan Seacrest, and I had this brick wall of nerves that was like, okay, this moment is real. And then nobody tells you Ryan's coming. I mean, you're sitting in front, they're always showing the show like you're sitting in front waiting to go in that room. Ryan will come out of nowhere, and you're just in that interview. So they don't give you any time. They're not like, okay, Ryan's going to come in and you're going to talk to him. Like, nobody tells you that. So I'm just sitting there like pacing back and forth because it's my turn next and they're filming me. And all of a sudden Ryan's whizzing by and he's like, PK. And dude, let me tell you, my interview with Ryan was so awkward and so weird because I had forgotten that I had told them about my old job, which I guess that Idol had taken an interest in, like me going door to door. They thought that was some cool thing. So immediately he starts out the conversation by saying, so you're PK and there's another PK in there. And I thought he was talking about Philip Kane. Philip Kane was the person who was going in right before me. So I'm like, yeah, that's Philip Kane. And he's like, no, I'm sorry. I'm screwing this up. I messed up the story. He didn't say there was another PK in there. He said there's a KP in there. And this is in the moment I screwed it up too. In the moment I screwed it, I did exactly what I just did, where I was like, yeah, it's Philip Kane, but he was talking about Katy Perry, obviously, because he said KP. So immediately it's awkward. And I'm like flustered because I'm like, the very first question he asked me, I didn't even know what to say. I said the wrong thing. And then he starts talking to me about my old job. And he wanted me to tell him like how I used to pitch people at the door. So he was like acting like he was a homeowner and I was like knocking on his door. And I'm just like sitting there like totally out of that mindset. Did not think that was going to be anything they either mentioned or wanted me to do. So I'm just like shaking and like barely getting words out with him. And then halfway through the conversation, I don't know if I was like blacked out or whatever. I'm just so nervous then because I'd already messed up what I was going to talk about. And he's like, all right, well, go ahead. Just sends me in the room. So I get into the audition room and Lionel's the only one who says hi to me. I'm like walking to my spot and Katie and Luke are like play fighting. They're like doing their little, they have weird chemistry, man. And they're just like, I don't even know how to describe it. They're just not in it at all. Neither of them looked at me. They were just like laughing really loud and having their own conversation. And Lionel's like trying to get to know me. And in my head, I'm like, there's no way like this, like, how can they have this moment of like them being noisy and me talking to them at the same time? Like no one's listening to me. So Lionel finally looks at them and looks at me and he's like, they have no off switch. So you might as well just tell us what you're going to sing. And so as I'm explaining that I'm going to sing You Are the Reason by Callum Scott, then Katie and Luke finally look up. So I'm like, okay. So like, that's the first time I'm seeing eye contact from any of them, except for Lionel. So I just take a deep breath and I had Fredley play for me and I start singing the song and I can see them like kind of getting engaged and I'm like trying my best to keep eye contact with them and make sure that I had them drawn in because I had heard all the advice I had gotten from anybody who had been there before was like eye contact is huge. How you're carrying yourself and performing your song is huge. Like don't stand still. Make sure you're engaged with your song and engaged with them. And I was worried about the high note in the chorus. So as I got up to that point and I hit that note, I was like, okay. And I had like, that's when like the screen dropped in front of me. All the nerves fell off my shoulders. I knew then that I had at least them in the moment, myself in the moment. And by the time I was done singing, I honestly, in my mind, I was like, they're going to send me through. Like, they got to send me through. Like, I killed that. And I had like all this confidence rush. And then Lionel starts talking, and like, it's the coolest thing you could ever hear from Lionel Richie. It's such a Lionel Richie moment. He was like, man, he's like, you sound like a quiet fire. And I was like, I got chills. He was like, he's saying that everybody who had come in before tried to be loud or tried to amplify this big moment of the song. And he said, at least for me, he never needed that moment. He said that I could portray that with good vocals rather than having to get too loud. I could bring a big moment without having to push it out, which I thought was really cool. And then Katie said that Quiet Fire should be the name of my first album and or song. And I thought, it was like, well, if this airs, like, and I don't have an album called Quiet Fire, like, I'm doing myself a disservice. And then I guess Luke didn't say too much, but he kind of agreed with both of them. They were talking about my control, which I thought was really cool, because that was definitely something I was trying to focus on. That song is a very like emotional song, and he's got a lot of big range. He goes from like really low notes to high notes really quickly. So one of the things I was trying to focus on was my control and how I was gonna, maneuver through the song. Katie actually said that my control reminded her of John Legend, which like took me back. Like, geez, like Katy Perry's like telling me that, which was insane. It was a moment I'll never forget. And yeah, and then they all stood up, did their thing, and said, like, going to Hollywood. And I was freaking out, and then my exit in the room was weird. I don't know whoever had interviewed me earlier in the show must have taken a note of my old job going door to door, because when I had first started talking and I was telling Lionel about the door-to-door thing, Katie and Luke decided to make, like, they were like joking around about it and like acting like door-to-door salesmen. And then when I was on my way out, I had got my golden ticket and I was walking out, and I was like, do I go through the same doors? Like, I didn't know where I was going, so I had to ask. And Katie was like, well, you should know about doors. I was like, Katie, like, it was really awkward exchanges. It was really, like, when I was speaking, I was very nervous, and I knew I was portraying being nervous. So the one good thing that happened was the actual singing. I knew that that's the reason I got my golden ticket. But looking back on it, I think because of how many awkward exchanges I had with both the judges, how little attention they were kind of paying towards me, and then like also my awkward interviews with Ryan, like, could have definitely been a reason as to why I wasn't getting aired, because it was awkward. It was awkward for me. I could tell it was awkward for them. And yeah, looking back, that's probably why I'm on the Idol Unaired podcast and not the Aired Exceptions. So, but yeah, all in all, an experience I'll never forget. And the things that the judges said to me were extremely positive. And, that moment still, in its own way, changed my life forever. So, I'm cool with it. I'm cool with the awkward exchanges, and I can have the golden ticket in exchange for that. That's fine with me.
Well, the story's not over because you made it to Hollywood, right?
Yes, Hollywood. That's when I think all of us feel like, then for me, like, then you feel like you're going to walk in a restaurant, people are going to know who you are and stuff. I had seen like the commercials for the show, and I was on the commercials that aired on Hulu and ABC. For like a brief moment, they had me coming out with Ryan Seacrest, and I had my ticket in my hand, which is hilarious because anybody who's been on the show, like, you guys know, they tell you not to post. Like, I had posted my announcement about being on the show, and I had posted one of my pictures from LA because it's that big Idol sign that everybody takes a picture with. And I hadn't taken a picture with that until I got to LA or Hollywood. I posted that, and, I get an email, and they're like, hey, you got to take that down because it's a spoiler. I'm like, what is it spoiling? Like, you guys already showed me with my ticket on the commercial. Like, why am I not allowed to show? So all that stuff is funny to me. But you literally think that, like, when you get there, like, okay, like, this is the start now. This is like the career changing moment. Then you realize how many people are there, and you're like, holy crap. Because because of how they section out your audition days in like Nashville, or whether you audition in Vegas or New Orleans, like you don't see that many people when you're up in the audition rooms. There may be like 50 or 60 other people in there with it, because they don't want to overcrowd it, because they're sectioning out into days. So you don't see that many people. And then when you get to LA, they have everybody together like immediately. And you're looking around and they're like, there's hundreds. And you're like, holy crap. Like, that's when it really gets intimidating. And they try their best to portray how hard Hollywood Week is on the show, but people have no idea. Like, I think this season they showed a bunch about that little moment where I think it was Karina and Nutsa that were duet partners?
Yeah.
That moment was probably the most relatable moment to me, at least, watching them bicker about, I need sleep or I need practice. That was the biggest thing. Like, because you just don't know. You have one, at least in Nashville, I probably ran through my song with Fred Lee like 4 or 5 different times. I was able to sing it, and then he records a little thing for you, and you take it to your hotel room. He'll record him playing the piano, so I can just practice my song as much as I want. When you're in Hollywood Week, like day 0 of Hollywood Week, you get one round of rehearsal, and that's it. You're in there. They give you 15 minutes max. And I was playing piano for myself. I had chose to sing. I wanted to pay tribute to one of my favorite past idols, Elliot Yamin. I think he was on like season 5, if I remember correctly. And he was like my family's favorite contestant. They all loved him. And I think he had to finish like top. I think he was like 3rd or something. He got voted off like very late. Fantastic voice, great like musician. And I was going to sing Wait For You by Elliot Yamin. And I was going to play the piano. I had known that piano riff like since I was a kid. It was like something I remember playing. But I go in the rehearsal room and like, at least to me, like I didn't sound that good. And like some of the high moments that I was trying to reach, like I was not hitting them. One of the things I regret that I started doing in Nashville that I should have stopped doing in Hollywood Week, because you think that you would gain some sort of experience and like kind of go at certain things differently. But even though I had those 15, 16-hour days in Nashville, for some reason, I thought that maybe Hollywood Week would be different and you'd be singing right away. So I am still wake up at 5 a.m., do my vocal warm-ups, and try to sing my song. Looking back, to anybody who is watching this that has a chance to be on the show next year or whatever, if you're thinking about doing it, save your voice, man. That was the biggest thing for me. And I didn't realize till I started rehearsing. And I'm rehearsing, I'm like, my voice is just tired. Like, you have to occupy your time while you're there somehow, or else you're going to be bored. So you're talking all day with all the other contestants, and it's fun. You're having a good time. Some of them are playing heads up. Some people are like Oliver Steele would be bringing his Switch. He's a big video game guy, so we'd be playing like Mario Kart in the hotel rooms or whatever. And we're all having a good time and singing throughout the day. Like it's a room full of musicians, so like we're all just in crowd singing and stuff. My advice is save your voice, because by the time it was rehearsal time, my voice was like, dude, like it's not gonna happen. So now I'm in like recovery mode, and I'm trying my best to, drink hot tea. It's like all you can do is just drink hot tea, pick some lemon drops, like whatever you can do. And sure enough, like it didn't click with me yet. Hollywood like performance round comes up, and sure enough, my voice is tired that day too. Between that, I wanted to talk about, of course we had it was shown on the show. You all have like the mentors on the show this season, which was huge. It was really cool. Originally, I had chosen stage presence because in my head, I didn't need you had options of stage presence, songwriting, or confidence. And for me, I didn't have a confidence issue. I figured I was a decent songwriter. I also didn't have any like songwriting to be done that I was going to show off on the show. So I was like, I'm just going to choose stage presence. I haven't performed in front of crowds that big yet. Definitely hadn't been on a stage that big. So however I was going to get the help. So my mentor should have been Jordan Sparks or Justin Giari, which meeting Jordan Sparks was like, whew, that was super fanboy moment. And then whenever we went to do the interview for my mentor, before the show, when you're like doing like your Zoom auditions, you have to write down like idols that you would like to meet one day. I don't know why they ask you that. I think it could be because of the mentor thing they do, but one of them was Jordan. for me that I wrote down. The other one was Elliot, you mean, because he was one of my favorites. And then I think I had Chris Daughtry on the list and Clay Aiken. Clay Aiken, I mean, I was a kid, but that was the first season of Idol I had watched. And I had watched both the season he didn't make it on. Because a lot of people forget he got no's from the judges at first. And then he went on to almost win the whole thing. And then Ruben Studdard, I think, is the one who won
Season 1, he went on and didn't make it. Is that what happened?
I think it's either he didn't make it or he got cut like extremely early.
Huh.
If I remember correctly, and I think he talked to me about that a little bit too. He was like, "Listen, like I didn't make it my first." I'm almost positive. I think if I redo the research, yeah, he definitely tried out and didn't make it at first, and then he went on to, which is crazy. And that's just persistence. Like, you know, for anybody who wants to, you know, test out being on the show, like it's not a one-stop shop. I mean, I tried out 4 different times. Like the 4th time is the one I actually ended up, you know, getting a chance to be in front of the judges. So it takes a lot. Ashley Tankard, you know, 15 times, like that's insane. Shout out to Ashley, because, you know, persistence is key. But when I walked into my interview, I'm expecting Jordan or Justin, and it was Clay Aiken. And I was like shell shocked when I walked in. I was confused because, you know, you're supposed to have, I was preparing for one or the other, and it was Clay, and I'm like such a big fan of his. And the first thing he tells me is like, he's like, "How do you know who I am?" I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, you know, you were top 2, like you still tour nowadays. Like, me and my family are huge fans of Clay. I remember being a kid, my mom would play his Christmas album. I still have to this day. We still have it on CD, and we listen to it all the time. And he's like, "Dude, you were like 4 when I was on the show. Like, there's no way you remember like Clay. Like, I promise you, I've been listening to you for years." And he's just the nicest guy in the world. I don't know why they paired me up with him. I think it's probably because he might have been one of the names I wrote down. I don't know if they just mixed it up. You know, between getting my audition day moved and all the different things that happened to me when I was in Hollywood Week and like them moving it around, I think that they constantly test certain contestants' character. I think they want to see how you're going to handle certain pressures. And I think that could have been something to do with it, because a lot of other contestants went through different things like that. But Clay, this story is really cool. He genuinely seemed to care about how my song was going to be done. He was giving me like real advice on my music. And I think that he's one of those people that genuinely wants to see the contestants succeed and isn't just there because he has to be. Because the advice he was giving me, like certain things, like take this part out of the song, this part like needs to be bigger, and was like really working with me on it. We must have been in the interview room for like 35 minutes. And then the coolest thing was, I was telling him that my mom's such a big fan. He actually said in the middle, he said, "I'll say it on camera and I'll say it off camera." He goes, "I watched your audition tape. They let me watch your audition tape before you walked in." He said, "You're one of my favorites to win the show."
Wow.
And I was like, what the heck? Like, I didn't even know how to react. I didn't know what to say. And I'm like, is he BSing me, or is this like, is it part of the, but just how he said it. And he just kept relaying things like that. I thought that he was genuine. And I think that he was sincere, and he was like, "But you have to kill this song." Like, he's like, "This round is super important." He said, "If you get past this, I can see you going a long way. But I think this is going to be the moment that you really have to key in on." I loved his advice. I took everything he said to heart, and I was really going to try to work on it. But I think I did that to a fault, because that evening I was up till like 2 a.m. playing the song, practicing the song, singing the song, knowing that even earlier that day I had not been able to hit certain notes. My voice was tired. You know, you're traveling a lot. You had just come from Nashville. Like, this is only like 2 weeks later. So I had been doing nothing but singing and practicing for so long. And yeah, my biggest advice is just save your voice to all those people. But the coolest thing about Clay is I get along with the interview. We're done. He lets me take a selfie with him. And he says, you know, he was like, "Tell your mother I said hello, like send that picture to her." I was like, okay. And then I go up to another interview on a different floor, and I was one of the last people. It was super late. I remember it's like 9:30 that night, and they're still doing interviews. And I had to have been one of the last people to do the mentor interview. And I'm about to do just like a personal interview, talking about Hollywood Week with one of the producers. And somebody comes in the room and pulls me from it, like in the middle of it. And they're like, you need to go downstairs like right now. And I was like, what? Like, I just finished everything I need to do. And they're like, "No, Clay Aiken asked for you to come back downstairs." I was like, what the heck? And I get to the same room. I'm wondering what the heck is going on. There's no more cameras. There's no more setup. There's nothing. It's literally just him and his manager. We're still sitting in the room. And he was like, hey, FaceTime your mom real quick. I was like, seriously? Like, just out of the kindness of his own heart, he remembered that I was talking about my mom's a huge fan and we've been listening to him for ages. And he just asked that I call her on FaceTime so she could have a cool moment.
Wow.
And I handed my phone to him and she answered, and they probably were on FaceTime for literally like 30 minutes. I wasn't speaking. I was just sitting watching them have a conversation. She was, completely fangirling. And they were talking to each other like they had known each other their whole lives. Like, it was just a very simple conversation, no cameras. He's just the nicest guy in the world. Just wanted to FaceTime my mother and have that moment. It's so freaking cool.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. It's just nuts. And so that's probably like the highlight of my Hollywood week was meeting Clay and how he operates. And then he even said afterwards he was and I'm calling him out right now if he ever watches this, because he told my mother he has a tour with Ruben and he's going to come to Tampa and he wanted to give us tickets. So I'm hoping and I'm waiting for that because I know your tour starting soon, Clay. But that's just another thing that he just did out of the kindness of his own heart, which was super cool. Idol has a bunch of those moments, man.
Yeah.
They just set you up with the greatest people. And, there's plenty of politics involved with the show, but all the good definitely outweighs the bad in that scenario for sure.
Clay and Ruben, they're performing on the finale, and I know that they're doing it specifically. Well, they have the tour to promote because they're going on tour together, and then it's going to be the exact 20-year anniversary of their finale in season 2, May 21st. Wow. So, all y'all, if you're watching it, just know he wanted Peyton. He thought Peyton could be the winner, and he's also a super nice guy. So if you guys play,
which is crazy, man. The whole thing about him. I think he said something along the lines of like he saw a lot of me in himself, and I think for the songs I was choosing to sing, like him and I have a similar style. Now that I'm up in Georgia, I sing a lot of country music, which is different for me, but it's working up there for reasons that I don't know. But at the time, I think we were just having a similar style. We were getting along, and I don't know, nicest guy in the world. He's definitely that was the highlight of my Idol experience right there, was everything Clay said to me. That was really cool stuff.
So remind me, I can't remember if you mentioned the song that you did end up singing for the performance challenge.
Wait for You by Elliot, you mean?
Right. So an Elliot song, and that's a classic.
It is a classic, and it's like it's a bop, like instant bop. Like when you hear it, a lot of people tell me like when I tell them that's the song, they're like, I don't know that song, and I'm like, play it for yourself.
Yeah.
And I promise you know what it is. And every time they start playing, they're like, oh yeah, I know this song. And I had like a slower version of it because at the end I had to find his range is pretty good on that song, but I had to, now I'm in Hollywood week. I felt like I had to find something extra to bring to the performance. So I decided I was going to sit and play it at piano because it's that classic riff that would be super recognizable. So come to the performance day, I wake up and, I had been up after what Clay had told me and all the adjustments we wanted to make. I was up till 2 playing the song, and I woke up with just I could almost tell with myself. I was like, my voice is not here today. So I was going to have to try to find some way to maneuver around it. I'm trying to talk as little as I can, but it's so difficult because you're with all your buddies, you're waiting to perform, and it's such a cool experience. Now you're in the LA theater, and, it's just cool being there. So, you can't do anything when you're nervous but sit there and talk with the other contestants. And we go to the auditorium room, the stage, and they start putting us into groups as to who's going to go first, and I'm in the second group.
Is that a welcome change after all the waiting you had to do for day 3?
There was 2 sides of it. I think I was sweet, because again, same thing I thought in Nashville. I'm if they haven't seen too many people, that's the stupidest thing to think of, because when it actually gets down to Hollywood week, it's coming down to your performance. It's how you sing. It's not, oh, they've seen enough talent, so you're not going to get through. It's none of that. But in my head, I was like, I have a head start on some of the other contestants. So yeah, definitely being able to get in there early was a cool feeling. I'm like, okay, at least now it's now or never. they asked me to go on stage to like kind of practice like my walk in, and you get to set up, if you're playing an instrument, you get to set up like where you want it. So I'm setting the piano up. The one thing I didn't think of was where my hands were going to be at on the piano. I remember when I went out there, I adjusted the seat and I adjusted the mic to how I was sitting. And that was like the one thing in my head. I was like, I got to make sure like the mic is right in front of my face. The one thing I never did was put my hands on the piano while my mic was in the right position and then test it out. So I wasn't focused at all on like where my hands were going to be. And that, like, it screwed me up because I finally go out there. They call me, like the cameras are rolling. They start filming, and I walk out there, and as I sit down, I get up to the mic, and they have you introduce yourself and say why you chose your category. So mine was stage presence. They say why you chose your category in front of the judges, and then say the song you're singing. And I said that I chose stage presence because I had never been on a stage of that magnitude, and I wanted to see if while sitting at the piano, I could still draw people to what I'm doing on stage. And I could see the judges kind of like that point. And then I go to play, and my hands are like up here. And I'm like, oh God, like this, like there's no way this is going to go well. And so I wanted to adjust my seat one more time to back up a little bit, but I'm like, the cameras are rolling, and I don't know if like I'm allowed to, like, this is why they had me on stage before, so I could do exactly that. So I can't move now. And in my head, I'm like, you're stuck. Like, just go start playing. And then like, I don't know if I just had bad luck. I just had so much awkward things happen when I was during Idol. Again, more things that make me like understand why I probably wasn't aired. But as I start playing, all the lights go out in the middle of the arena.
Well, that's not your fault.
For like 0.2 seconds. Like, they just flicker on and off. And I'm like, I barely even noticed, but it was enough to me. Like, and again, yeah, it wasn't my fault, but I'm looking around, and like the cameras are still going, and nobody's like stopped doing what they're doing. So I'm like, okay, like, and then I start singing, and it was actually going pretty well. I'm like, okay, like, yeah, like I'm killing this. I'm like looking at the judges, and, you know, my hands feel weird, but, you know, I'm making it work. And then when it got to the chorus, there's like a big jump going from like up here on the piano to down here, back and forth a lot. And I'm trying to look at the judges, and I know how to play this song, but, you know, I'm doing like, I have like a little bit of shake because I'm nervous. I'm on the stage, and I miss my jump down to a completely wrong note. And I don't stop singing, but it took me like 3 other wrong notes to finally find where I was at on the piano. And I can see Katie's face kind of like, oh no, like he's screwing up. But I don't stop singing, and I'm like doing fine. But then I'm a little flustered. So I get back in one of the verses. I finally get back to where I'm supposed to be at. It took me forever. I don't, honestly, like in that moment, I was so nervous. I don't know how long it took. I just know I was hitting the wrong notes at least 5 or 6 keys in a row. And then I think because of how flustered I was, my voice cracks while I'm singing. Just a big fat ass crack right on the mic. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I had planned to have this big moment at the end of the song. It's in the second verse. He's like, what does he say? It's like, but you're telling me it won't be enough. And I was going to hit that really loud, really big at the end. And I was just too nervous at that point. I was like, I already screwed up. So I just kept the song completely regular, had no big moment in the middle of it, completely karaoke'd the rest of the song. It sucked because like halfway through the song, I'm like, yeah, I'm not getting through. I'm like, I just, you know, in my head, I was like, you can't stop singing because you're still fighting for a chance. But in the back of my head was like, yeah, you know, you spent your last time on Idol. And so I finished the song, and immediately I just like sat there, took a deep breath, and like I'm walking off stage, and I'm like, I couldn't. I'm a crier, dude. I was crying my eyes out walking off the stage. I'm like, I totally botched my performance. My friend Avery was sitting right next to Lionel and right next to the stage. And she tells me that when I was walking off the stage, you're not supposed to have any banter with the judges after you perform in performance week. Unless they ask you to come to the mic, you're not really going to say anything. apparently when I was walking off, I could hear everybody in the audience saying PK, like PK. And I thought that they were just trying to like lift me up because they knew I messed up. I thought they were just encouraging me. I didn't know that Katie and Luke were also trying to call me back to the mic to speak with them. I had no idea. And I think that Katie was just going to kind of like try to ask me what happened or something. Avery said that she looked at Lionel and said he was really good, but he just lost his composure. And I never heard her say that. I never heard her call me back to the stage, so I never walked back. And my dumbass tried to hide from the cameras. When I got backstage, I tried to like veer off and go have my moment because I'm like frustrated, I'm crying, I'm sad. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I'm all by myself. And then I turn around and the cameras are right there. And I actually thought that if anything was going to get aired, it was going to be my Hollywood week because of how much I like cried and also missed. I thought in TV, that was like gold in my head. I was like, well, they're going to think that that's awesome, that I am sad as hell. And they're going to put that on, which they didn't do. Which I'm kind of thankful nothing from Hollywood week got shown for me. But it took me like 30 minutes to get into my interview even after that, because I couldn't help myself. I was so frustrated. I was angry. And of course I stopped right at that moment. I'm like, well, I should have sang a different song, or I should have done this. And, you know, you can't do that to yourself when you're looking back now, whether you're going to mess up or do it perfectly. Like those moments, man, like at least when I first started singing for the first time on that stage, there was nothing cooler that I've done in my music career than sitting on that, in that beautiful arena and watching that happen. Like, that was truthfully something I'll never forget. And then everything after that, I'd like to forget. So
yes, no, what was the result?
They did that thing that they're doing on the show right now that's like really annoying, where they make you think you're getting through and then you're not getting through. So they bring us all on stage in my group, which was I think the only person that made it that was aired in my group was Malik.
Okay.
And he's actually made it pretty far. Did he make it to the top 12 as well? Because I haven't caught up yet.
No, he made top 26, and then he was one of the 6 to get cut. And what happens is when you get cut at the top 26, you make it to the studio, but you don't actually get to perform at the studio. You know what I mean? So you got like the live performance that airs, and it's a bummer because we don't see them sing. But
okay, makes sense. So yeah, Malik was. I think there was only 2. We had a group of like 6, and only 2 got through. And I forget who the other kid was. But Malik was easily the best in our group, and he got through. But they told the 2 that got through to step forward. And then she says, unfortunately, for those of you who have stepped forward, your performance round has come to an end or something. Like the stupidest thing. I'm getting so annoyed with this because I literally in Hawaii, they did it with like every contestant. Like every single person that was aired on the show, they're like, yeah, it's not going to happen here because it's going to happen there. You're moving on. Like, you know, the dumbest thing.
They had me with a couple of them.
They had me with it. Well, they had me in Hollywood week because I'm sitting there and I'm shocked. I was like, if they had aired it, you would have seen me like perk up like, no way I'm getting through. And then she goes, you're, what did she say? It's the dumbest thing. I think she said like your performance week has come to an end because your duet rounds are just like the dumbest thing. And of course she was talking to the 2 that were in the front. We're looking at each other like, we're looking like, dude, like
what just happened?
Somehow, some way we made it. Like, hell yeah. I'm really excited because I knew I messed up. And like, I'm like, this is sick. Veronica was in my group. She was standing next to me. And, yeah, I think we both looked at each other like, oh my God, we're going to get through. And then they sent us off. And the one also, gosh, dude, so many awkward things happened. I'm like walking off the stage and they're walking us back to the end of the theater. And like in the main lobby of the theater, before you get into like the performance section, is all the interview cameras set up and all the, everything's just like made up, and it's like the behind the scenes of the show. They walk us back to the double doors and they put our group in a row, and I'm the last one in the group. And they're like, no, not you, PK. You walk through the doors. And I'm like covered in tears. I'm like still crying. I'm like still upset at myself. I'm like in my head, I'm like, I screwed this all up for myself. And I walk through the doors and it's just like 3 cameras sitting right there. And a producer like, what happened? And I'm like, I'm going home. Like, you know, I'm all sad. And I just thought, because of all that stuff, I thought I was a shoo-in to at least get shown that, my amount of tears I was shedding in Hollywood Week. But thank God it didn't happen. And it is a sad exit. Like, immediately you get cut, you're in an interview and you're talking about getting cut, and like they're just poking at your emotions and doing different things. And yeah, that was it. That was my Hollywood Week experience, man. And it was a doozy. Looking back, there are certain things they look for. And while I think everybody who's left on the show, I think that they got all the right singers there, at least, because the talent was amazing. But there's also a ton of really, really intriguing stories. Tanji is sweetest guy in the world. When we first got to Hollywood Week, nobody knew his story. He hadn't told anybody that his father had just passed or anything. We all found that out when he auditioned. When his audition got aired. Like, none of us, like even the people he was getting close to, none of us knew, unless he was telling a couple others that kept to themselves. I was fortunate enough to Oliver Steele. I actually got to have lunch with him and his father the day before he auditioned, and just getting to pick his dad's brain about the music industry. Very bright man, and just unfortunate that the certain things that have happened to him have, but it hasn't affected Oliver any. And he's the nicest guy in the world. And Oliver and I still will text. I try to text him about every other day if I can. And that's another great thing about some of these people, is that they have these really incredible stories, and a lot of them have been through a lot. But they're humans. That's going to happen to them. But they've all kept their composure well, and they've all been extremely sweet to the rest of the contestants. And I think that's really cool. But yeah, stories it was one of the things I didn't have. Mine was cliche. I got divorced parents, but I don't live a bad life. Like, I've always been taken care of. We've always had a decent home to live in, and my parents have worked hard for everything they've had, and so have I. And I didn't really have anything to sob about. And while that's neither here nor there, and I'm not like upset that I don't have a sob story to give them, but it's just not for reality TV. I've lived a good life. I haven't had any problems, and I'm a good singer, which maybe on a different singing competition would be a different result. But for Idol, they're looking for a little bit more than that, which is it's understandable.
Let's talk a little post Idol. I mean, it's been a minute. What's going on?
Yeah, man. So immediately after Idol, the one blessing was, like, as soon as I could announce stuff and I could show like little clips of like the commercial and whatnot, I think people in North Georgia started knowing who I was at that point. Really thankful for the community out there. I want to shout out my man Tony, David, who owns Hopscotch, and Maverick, my boys Kane, Rusty, all my bandmates and stuff. They've all been super helpful and kind of like plugging me in that area, because they know a lot of people, and the small town I'm in is so community based. So they've definitely helped me out in that way, which is really cool. So thank you guys. But as soon as Idol, I announced it, I got so many shows and started playing at different places. And then when I started playing at some of them, I was able to say like, hey, like, potentially watch out for me on the show. And I kept getting gigs and gigs, and I'm happy now, because I've been there for about 7 months, and I went there with one paycheck in my hand for my last job. And next month of May, I have 10 shows total, and I'm going to be able to actually profit and not just scrape by paying my bills. And so it's been a long time coming. Amazing. But shout out to the show that that made that happen a lot for me. And other stuff coming up. Songhouse is another thing. The first person I met, and I'm not sure if you've talked to her yet, or I'm sure you've heard of her, Rebecca Brunner.
Yeah.
She was one of the first people I met, and I'll never forget. There was this guy playing in the hotel. I forget his name. I want to say it's Dave or something, but he had a gig in our hotel, and he was just playing guitar, but he was wildly talented. I mean, it's Nashville, so even people who are playing for for hotel lobbies and stuff, like, those are wickedly talented people. And it was just me, Rebecca Brunner, and Caroline Smallwood were sitting in the room listening to him. And then he asked like what we were all doing there. We told him we were there for Idol. And we just had he just started playing for us to sing. We just had like this little intimate jam session, and like some of the parents were sitting in there with us and just listening. And I remember sitting there, I was like, dang, like, I could get used to this. This is cool to just like, I thought people were going to be egotistical. I didn't really figure anybody was going to be wanting to sing with anybody, be wasting their voice, whatever. But immediately they're just like chilling, hanging out. And then I get Instagram followers off of them. And, they start helping promote your stuff down the line, and really sweet people. And then, an hour goes by and you look around the room and now there's like 20 contestants sitting and singing, and everybody's got a guitar out. And that's probably been my favorite memory there. And both because of how it gives you confidence as like to what you're doing there. For musicians, there's nothing that beats that. Like if I want to make friends, like it's going to be in that setting. That's what I envision. Like, a true like group of friends and family members in music. That's how I pictured that, which was really cool that it happened that way. And it's funny because I was watching your episode with Will, and he was talking about how he met her, which is hilarious. I think I had recognized her from something else. I almost want to say I heard one of her songs on Spotify before ever realizing how big of a part she was in Songhouse, and it was probably one of the ones she recorded with them. But one of my good friends, and I call her like my momager because she's got me a ton of gigs down here in Tampa. She's like my mother's best friend, and she's been a big part of my life. Her name's Effie. She has been trying to get me into Songhouse for like years. Like, I mean, since it started, she's like, PK, like, we got to get you there. You got to apply. You got to do this and that. And when she was trying to get me on, it was when I was living here and was working, and I didn't really have a hand in music. And then I meet Rebecca. She starts telling me, I think it was probably like the third day we were in Nashville. It might have been actual audition day. I think we were just going over content. Like I was looking at Instagrams and stuff, and she showed me one of her videos on Songhouse and was like, "You're a part of Songhouse?" And it was the same way that like Will talked to her about it. And she was like, "Yeah, like I kind of like started Songhouse." I'm sitting like, what the heck? Like I've been trying to get into this for years. And then we kind of just bottled the conversation until, I mean, it must have been after LA that I first went. I was going to Nashville to visit some friends from Idol, who you were just talking about, Liam. Shout out to Liam. That's the guy. One of my all-time favorite human beings. Liam, McKinley Brown, who's been blowing up off of her appearance on the show. Rebecca, Avery Vickers. So a bunch of names. I'm going to list so many names at the end of the show. But Rebecca calls me. I'm like, I'd been driving for Nashville 4 hours from my home in Beaufort. And I was going to visit, and I had told her that I was coming to town. We were going to do dinner or something. But she calls me, and I'm like 30 minutes out from where I was going to meet her. She was like, "Hey, like change of plans. We're going to this marketing event." I was like, okay. Like I was literally in like sweats because I had been driving for 4 hours. I'm like, I got to go change somewhere. So I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what this marketing event was for. All she had told me was that it was with some of the viral houses of Nashville. And so I like changed in a McDonald's parking lot, and I go to this address that she sends me in this ginormous house. And I'm like, there's no way I'm in the right place. So I call her. I'm like walking up to the door, and she comes outside. And when we had gone inside, the first person I saw was Tyler Ward from Songhouse. And I'm like, I got to introduce myself. Like, I just have to say something. So I walk up and talk to him, and I had forgotten that I had met him like on a whim, like maybe a month earlier. I think we were in Nashville. I was visiting Liam that trip, and just Liam. And all the Idol people were at this B&B for some sort of reason. I didn't know what it was. I figured they were all just hanging out. And we had gone to hang out with some Idol people, and some of the Songhouse people were there as well. I didn't know that I had just crossed his path. So fast forward to now, I know who he is, and I go to talk to him, and he's just like, "Hey, like, what are you doing tomorrow?" I was like, "I mean, I'm on vacation. Like, I'm not doing anything." He's like, "Okay, well, you have something to do now." And then that was Songhouse, which is crazy. Rebecca constantly does stuff like that for people. Like, if you know Rebecca well, she is just an angel at heart. She's got a good soul, and she is constantly just like making things happen for other people. She's super selfless and just such a sweetheart. But now as a result, there's probably tons of people you're going to interview or have interviewed that are now like either a part of or have been to Songhouse to do some sessions. And I've met some wonderful people, and the connections through Songhouse are incredible. But how it happens after the show is crazy, because they've already posted Michael Wayani's song is going crazy on pop charts. Oliver Steele's been on there. A lot of those who are some of my really close friends, but that's the real connection, right? So like you could go there and meet all those people and market with all those people, but it sticks. And I think that was the coolest thing for me is, you could meet any artist, any time of the day, and they can say that they're going to support you and they'll follow you on social media, and they could just be background noise at that point. You never know. There's a lot of people. That's what I had here in Tampa. There's a lot of people that wanted to be your friend in the situation, or say they want to be a friend, and you never hear from them again. But almost every single person I met on Idol and during either my auditions or the actual judging weeks in like Hollywood week, I've remained extremely close with them, and we all have group chats. We text daily. I'm sure my phone's on do not disturb right now, but I'm sure they're blowing it up right now. Like they are relentless. They're never not on it. So that's been really cool. That community stays really strong, and I'm thankful for that. I'm actually able to write with some of their people and record with some of their people. So I'm excited to announce, this is the first time I'm announcing this publicly. The third week of May, which is actually going to be my birthday. Hopefully we're aiming towards May 27th. I have a new single called Kurt Russell coming out. Coming out hopefully no later than May 27th. It's a summertime bop. If anybody knows who Walker Hayes is, it's kind of like country pop.
Oh yeah.
Super vibey, windows down. I was able to write that with Dennis Cook, Eliza, I forgot your last name. You're going to kill me. Gabe and Callie, all who have had a hand in both my experiences on Songhouse, and they also just help out a bunch of other artists in Nashville. There's great people. Really excited for everybody to hear that. And it's actually based off of my original Hollywood experience, like kind of just being in the city and like feeling like you're a star just because of where you're at and stuff. So I'm really excited about that. Hopefully we're going to get some content out next week so people can keep up with that coming up and being released. I released a song while I was in Hollywood called Be With You. It's on all platforms. You can check me out under Peyton Kyle. And if you're in the North Georgia area, anywhere surrounding Buford, Gainesville, as far north as Blairsville, anywhere in Atlanta, look me up. I'm playing every weekend. That's about it. That's what I got going on, man.
That's awesome. And you're going to play us out here in just a second. So why don't you tell us about the song you chose? And
I am. So I was actually awkwardly and unfortunately going through a breakup in the middle of American Idol, which was tough. Still have a lot of love and appreciation for that person. We went through a lot together, but unfortunately, in one of the highest moments of my life, which was being on Idol, I was also going through something really, really upsetting. So this song is called Stick Season. And I think it's Noah Khan. I'm just going to say Khan. And if I get it wrong and some fan of his is out there that's going to blow me up for that, then I'm sorry. But it's kind of about that. It's kind of being like, you're at the peak of something great. And it's just, unfortunately, it's not time for that thing yet, which also goes in hand of me being on Idol. It was a great experience. I'm really glad I was there. But the Lord has other plans for me, and it could just be being an artist in Georgia and or being a Songhouse guy, and I'm cool with that for now. I'm thankful for everything Idol did for me. But when you don't get shown, it's got to be for a reason. Everything happens for a reason. So anybody else who is in that position, if you've been on Idol Unaired or you're considering doing the podcast, you should do it. It's a great podcast. Don't be afraid to talk about all the stuff you went through. It's part of life, and we all have other opportunities happening elsewhere. So keep your heads up and don't quit, man. Keep at it. But thank you, Bennett, too, for having me on, man. This is really cool. I've watched plenty of episodes at this point, so now I'm really glad that I had the opportunity. So thank you for that. And gonna hear Stick Season here in a couple minutes.
Yeah, honored to have you, man. And I heard you warming up. Sound beautiful. Love your tone. Love your style.
Thanks, man. Thanks, man.
Excited to hear more originals from you, and stay tuned for the upcoming releases. So one more time, socials.
Find me anywhere on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook at I am Peyton Kyle, PeytonKyle. I'm not on Twitter. I don't do Twitter. But I do everything else. And then on any music platform, just Peyton Kyle, and you'll see my music come up. I appreciate the support and love everybody that's been following my journey since Idol. So thank you guys.
Thank you, man. You guys enjoy this conversation. Make sure you follow us. Instagram, TikTok, Idol Unaired Podcast. Got to subscribe if you haven't already, wherever you're listening or watching. Tell a friend, leave a comment, review, whatever you want to do to help support us. Peyton, thank you so much for being a part of American Idol Unaired.
Pleasure to meet you, bro. Thank you so much for having me on. Hopefully this was really cool because this gives an opportunity for a lot of like my family members and friends to hear about the experience that they haven't heard about yet. So thank you again. I appreciate it.
It was an honor. Let's hear Stick Season.
As you promised me that I was more than all the miles combined, you must have had yourself a change of heart halfway through the drive, because your voice trailed off exactly as you passed my exit sign. Kept on driving straight and left our future to the right, and now I'm stuck between my anger and the blame that I can't face, and memories of something even smoking weed does not replace. And no, I'm terrified of weather, cause I see you when it rains. Doc told me to travel, but there's COVID on the planes, and I love Vermont, but it's the season of the sticks. And I saw your mom, she forgot that I existed, and it's half my fault. And I just like to play the victim. I'll drink alcohol till my friends come home for Christmas, and I'll dream each night of some version of you that I might not have, but I did not lose. And now your tire tracks and one pair of shoes, and I'm split in half, but that'll have to do. And so I thought if I had piled something good on all my bad, that I could cancel out the darkness I inherited from Dad. And no, I'm no longer funny, cause I miss the way you laugh. You once called me forever, and now you still can't call me back. And I love Vermont, it's the season of the sticks. And I saw your mom, she forgot that I existed, and it's half my fault. But I just like to play the victim. I'll drink alcohol till my friends come home for Christmas, and I'll dream each night of some version of you that I might not have, but I did not lose. And now your tire tracks and one pair of shoes, and I'm split in half, that'll have to do. Oh, that'll have to do. My other half was you. I hope these pains just passing through, but I doubt it. And I love Vermont, it's the season of the sticks. And I saw your mom, she forgot that I existed, and it's half my fault. But I just like to play the victim. I'll drink alcohol till my friends come home for Christmas, and I'll dream each night of some version of you that I might not have, but I did not lose. And now your tire tracks, one pair of shoes, and I'm split in half, but that'll have to do.